It does not take a genius to realize that there is one emotion that is always involved when there is resistance to change. And it's an emotion that begins with the letter F. I'm sure that many of you can guess what that emotion is. It is fear. But here's the thing. Fear shuts down thinking in a way that is very different from what you've been led to believe. Now, I saw this firsthand recently speaking with a client of mine who had just introduced a new back-end system for their sales team. They were rolling it out across their entire retail business. The previous system they'd had, the old system, was a relic from 2 decades ago. It didn't work on smartphones. It was basically DOS-based. It constantly crashed, and it frustrated everyone who used it. So they developed a new platform. And the new platform is a complete reinvention. My client couldn't wait to send it live. She was so excited. Now, when I ran into her later that year, I asked how the rollout had gone, expecting her to share a positive story, but that's not the case at all. She sighed. She said, honestly, this has been probably the hardest rollout of anything that I've ever done in my career. The pushback has been immense. She said, we've had people who've resigned. There's been a petition going around with people signing it, wanting to go back to the old system, the one they all hated. She said, I guess I underestimated how afraid of change our people are. Now, we've been told that for decades, that humans are naturally afraid of change. We just assume that it's part of what it is to be human, but it's not true. You and I are not afraid of change. The fear that causes us to shut down and causes others to shut down, to resist new things, new ideas, is not the fear of change, it's the fear of loss. The moment there's loss involved in change, that's when this resistant instinct tends to get triggered. Typically, there are 3 losses that trigger resistance most frequently. The first of these is a loss of power. When change makes us feel sidelined or less significant. The second is a loss of familiarity. That discomfort we feel by leaving behind what is known, what is predictable, what feels sure. The third is the loss of dignity, that fear of appearing foolish or being seen as out of touch or losing face. Because the key in helping people to embrace change is not to push harder or to try and sell the change, it's to lessen the loss. Don't press harder on the accelerator, release the handbrake in people's minds. Now, that might mean asking for advice rather than giving instructions. It could mean involving people early in the process. They feel they've got some ownership over the process of change. Or it could simply mean giving people a choice, even a small choice, so they feel like they are in the driver's seat of the change. Because if people do not feel they've got choice or agency, they will instinctively resist change rather than engage. Dale Carnegie put it best when he said this. He said, someone convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. See, real influence is not about forcing compliance. It's not about even coaxing through incentives. It's about lessening any sense of loss and creating the conditions where people feel they are able to make the choice, the willing choice to change.